I'm Chance Storland, and this is the Spurs Insider, our weekly NBA podcast from ExpressNews.com. And now I'm joined by San Antonio Express News sports writer Tom Orsborn directly after the Spurs' 96-86 loss to the Grizzlies. Tom, it seems like the Spurs team that showed up tonight was a team from a while back, not the Spurs team that we've seen in the last several games.
Yeah, Chance, and you're right, but I think they're just a victim tonight of the NBA schedule. They're on the road Monday at Detroit, and then they travel to Memphis, play the Grizzlies 2 days later. Memphis, meanwhile, is at home. They're rested, and you've also got to look at just the law of averages. The Grizzlies had a losing streak going. Spurs on a winning streak. It just kind of evens out every so often. So I don't think it's a need to panic for Spurs fans, but they shot poorly tonight. And they're playing a Memphis team that's known for their defense. The Spurs shot 36.1% for the game. They scored 31 points in the first half on 27% shooting or something like that. I mean, it's just one of those nights. And then on top of that, you're missing Rudy Gays out of the lineup with a wrist injury. Davis Bertans gets ejected, a rare ejection for a Spur, really for doing nothing, I thought. I thought that was a pretty questionable call. So it's just one of those nights in the NBA. It's such a long season. The law of averages factor into it a lot of times, and thus you have the loss. Now, the one thing, though, to look at is the schedule coming up. You got back-to-back games against Oklahoma City right now, one of the teams in the West that the Spurs are chasing. It's a home and away. That's not going to be easy. I think that's going to be a tough deal. And then you got Charlotte coming in on Monday. Tony Parker's return. Charlotte has been dangerous all season. And then you've got a road trip to Dallas, which isn't going to be easy, and at Minnesota. So, they had to lose sometime, so I'm not worried about that. But what looms ahead could get rough if they let this loss linger and the poor shooting continues. But my guess is that the way they've been playing of late, they seem to have turned the corner. They're a much more cohesive unit. I think they're going to get back on track after this loss.
Yeah, it's one of those moments when you think, maybe I should have gone left instead of going right. The other way that I had in my mind to describe this was that the team seemed depleted. They didn't seem like they had everything together. As you just pointed out, law of averages, victim of the schedule.
Yeah, and DeRozan had an off night. DeMar DeRozan had 9 points. That's well below his average. He missed 11 of 15 shots. Missed 2 of 3 from the free throw line. One of the best free throw shooters on the team, and it's just one of those nights. So you put this behind you. You get back home. You got a game tomorrow night against Oklahoma City. Like I said, that's not going to be easy. But you're back home. You got that home energy behind you. I think they'll get back on track.
I want to talk about Rudy Gay, that very uncharacteristic ejection that you mentioned. That was interesting. One other thing, though, I noticed about the game, watching it, it looked like it was almost like a scrimmage. It was not a lot of people in the seats. Yeah,
and quite frankly, that's not uncommon around the NBA. I mean, you're seeing that kind of attendance. And it doesn't really show up because season ticket sales is what they count. And, of course, we all know in professional sports, it's the luxury suite sales and your sponsorships that matter the most. But, in this day and age where you can watch on TV and you have so many things competing for your discretionary income and your attention, you're seeing this more and more in all of professional sports where these middle of the season, regular season games, just the attendance is down. There's a number of factors, but you're right. It was a low energy building. And like I said, when the Spurs get home, they always play much better in front of their home crowd. And of late, the Spur fans have been really bringing a lot of energy. So I think things will pick up in San Antonio.
Something else that was off this game, that ejection. Tell me about that. That was strange. It was interesting listening to the commentary. They were trying to decide, did someone say anything? They were thinking, when was the last time this guy's been ejected from a game?
Yeah, well, Davis, we like to call him Dobbs. That's what his teammates call him. He's not this milk toast, calm and collected guy that everybody thinks he is. And I'm not saying that from a verbal standpoint. But he's a physical player for a guy that's skinny and lanky. He can mix it up, and he doesn't back down from guys either. They've liked that from him from the start. He's had a couple of times in his career where other players have tried to intimidate him, and he punches right back. Not literally punches, but he keeps his nose in there and he doesn't back down from anybody. Now tonight, I think what happened, Chance, is it's just a matter of a lack of respect. Another player in the league, an all-star, DeRozan, whoever, Aldridge, they're going to get away with saying something under their breath or saying something that's not that egregious. But I think there's a lack of respect factor there with Dobbs, and I think that's what happened tonight. And we were talking about everyone having an off night. Well, sometimes these refs have off nights too. Who knows what's going on with them off the court? We want them to be objective. We want them to be calm, cool, and collected. But hey, they're like anyone else. Some nights their nerves are shot for whatever reason, and they have a quick trigger.
So you have a little disagreement there between some players on the teams, and then it leads to the ejection. But you also had some brotherly love on the court. Tell me about that.
Yeah, the Gasol brothers. That was good to see. Jeff McDonald had a great story in today's paper and online about Pau Gasol. And here he is coming back to Memphis, where he started his career. He's had a great career, but he's kind of come from where he was at the start of his career in Memphis, a great up and coming player who would go on to gain 6 All-Star bursts, win 2 championships. He ranks 38th all time in scoring, and now he's at the tail end of his career, and it's been hard for him to get playing time. With the rotation now, with Jakob Poeltl's emergence, Pal's been kind of glued to the bench, as Jeff pointed out in his story today, and it was good to see him out there. And he's coming back from that injury. He's got 2, 3, 4 games under his belt now. He's starting to play a little bit more, and who knows? He had some good comments today, saying he's not going to sweat it. He's not going to complain about it. Of course, he's been a pro all his career. But he just thinks things will even out, and he'll get his chance sooner or later to try to get more minutes as the season progresses. But it's always good to see the Gasol brothers battle. 2 great players who have pushed each other throughout their career, and little brother got the best of big brother tonight.
Now let's get to Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay was gone. What's the status of Rudy Gay?
Well, they don't seem to know. Pop was asked about it before the game. He doesn't have a firm timetable for when Rudy will return. He's got a sore left wrist, and he initially hurt it right after Christmas. It was December 29th at the Clippers. He banged it up. It cost him a game on New Year's Eve against Boston. He sat that one out. And then he got hurt again January 5th, last Saturday against Memphis. He banged that wrist again. I asked him about it after the game. He said he was fine, but he left the AT&T Center, Chance, with a brace on his wrist, on his left wrist. So that wasn't a good sign. So he's missed the last 2 games, and nobody has a firm timetable for when he's going to return. He was in Detroit on this trip. At the beginning of this trip, they sent him back home to get re-examined by the medical staff. And Pop said tonight, they're going to have to do something else, whether that means just treatment or a shot is kind of not clear right now. But they miss him. They miss him a lot. He's a great scorer. He's the third leading scorer at 13.6 points per game. He's also averaging 6.6 rebounds. He's been playing good defense this year. He's kind of a dynamic player on both ends of the court. He can score, rebound, just do a little bit of everything, as DeMar DeRozan has pointed out. So you lose him, you lose a lot of your energy. And let's hope for the Spurs' sake that he's back soon. If he's not back for the Oklahoma home and away series, that puts them at a little bit of a disadvantage. But, Rudy, one thing about Rudy, he's a resilient guy. He's proven after he suffered that Achilles injury that he's one of the tougher guys in the league, came back from that when no one thought he could. And he's a guy, Chance, who really loves basketball, loves the NBA, loves what he does for a living. So he wants to be out there, and that's half the battle. So I look for him to return soon.
And then, Tom, before we move on to talk about some final questions about those upcoming games that you've already briefly mentioned, not the greatest game for the Spurs, but as of late, Bryn Forbes has been doing really well, and he made some important shots tonight.
Yeah. Bryn shot poorly like everyone else, but he still finished with 14 points. And that's the thing about him. He's been a double figure scoring machine all season. Bryn has started. Another thing about him, he started all 43 games for the Spurs this season, and he's one of only 3 undrafted players in Spurs history to start every game in the first half of the season. The other 2 guys that pulled that off, the other 2 undrafted guys, were Avery Johnson and Bruce Bowen, both of whom have their jerseys retired in the AT&T Center rafters. So, Bryn is one of those feel-good stories for the Spurs. Undrafted out of Michigan State, came in and worked his butt off. I mean, that guy worked as hard as anyone in the organization ever has, and it's paid off. Right now, he's averaging career best across the board scoring, 12.3 points per game, assists 2.3, shooting percentage is 46.6. So here's a guy at the start of the season who was expected to be in the lower half of the rotation, a bench guy, but with that injury to Derek White early in the season, Bryn made the most of it. He got into the starting lineup as the de facto point guard, and he's just been a solid performer all the way. Really happy for the kid. He's a likable guy. Like I said, he works hard. Another guy who really loves the game of basketball and just joy to be around. He's been good in the locker room too, Chance. For a young kid, he's always good to talk to. He's kind of filling the role Danny Green had as a guy who's always around and always available to talk to the media. So hats off to Bryn Forbes. He's had a great season. I look for it to continue. And he can only get better with that developmental staff the Spurs have. He's gonna keep making steps forward, and probably gonna have a good solid career with the San Antonio Spurs.
That's great to be able to look forward to that type of discussion. The future of the San Antonio Spurs. It wasn't so long ago when the current status of the San Antonio Spurs was a rough topic, though, of course, there's been a lot of improvement. Let's look forward to some games here, Tom. We got 2 games against OKC starting tomorrow, then at home OKC, and then that big game against Charlotte. Let's break those down a little bit more.
Yeah, well, Oklahoma City, they're right up there, right up there in the upper half of the Western Conference. Russell Westbrook, of course, playing great, and as always, and Paul George is having a fine season. So, they want to be one of the elite teams in the league, and they're certainly pointed in the right direction. Spurs, and I forgot to mention Steven Adams, their rough and tumble center, who seems to always play at his best against the Spurs. So, yeah, that's going to be a fun series. That's going to be, I call it a series, but these home and away, this is the third home and away type situation the Spurs have had where they've played a team back to back. Pop hates them, Chance. He hates them. He talks about it. You know, those are the type of games or type of situation that should be saved for the playoffs, a playoff type situation. But the league, for whatever reason, has scheduled the Spurs to have three of them this season. They played Denver back to back, home and away. They played the Lakers also in that type of situation. Now Oklahoma City. So you get through with that, and then there's a game that could be very emotional for a lot of people when Tony Parker returns January 14th with the Charlotte Hornets. You know, it's certainly not going to be anything like it was with Kawhi Leonard. There's no hatred or animosity there. No one's going to chant quitter or traitor, I think. I think it's going to be more emotional in terms of an appreciation for a guy who's had a Hall of Fame career with the Spurs and you know, has gone off to a situation that he felt would be better for him in the twilight of his career. And he's made the most of it. Tony's had a very good season. So that's just one of those games that everyone's looking forward to. It should be a lot of fun. And it'll be good to see Tony Parker again.
And thank you to San Antonio Express News sports writer Tom Orsborn for joining me for today's episode of the Spurs Insider, our weekly NBA podcast from expressnews.com. For the San Antonio Express News, I'm Chance Dorland.